Not to become an immortal, I only wish you would return in this mortal world. Keywords of the novel. Covering the sky. Little girl with no pop-ups, covering the sky. Little girl full collection download, covering the sky. Little girl latest chapter reading. Chapter 1. Preface. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 1. Preface. The cosmic starry sky. Here is a desolate planet in a corner of the ancient path of the starry sky that belongs to humanity. In the forest, a ray of early morning light shone through the gaps between the leaves and scattered on the ground, illuminating the face of the little girl sleeping there. That is a little girl with short black hair, looking exceptionally petite. The petite girl was now lying quietly in the arms of the young man, soundly asleep. Her petite body curled up in a ball, her hands still tightly embracing one of the young man's arms, refusing to part even in deep sleep. Even lying on a hard ground with only some hay underneath, as long as there is a teenager by her side, the little girl's sleep will be particularly sweet. Pop. Beside, accompanied by the burning of the campfire, the burning branches made a crackling sound. The morning dew also dripped down the veins of the leaves. It fell into the fire and onto the little girl's face. Feeling the drops of dew, the little girl was awakened from her sleeping dream. Her name is Nan Nan, which was given to her by her brother. I haven't seen my parents, but I was raised by my older brother alone. Just for the sake of helping themselves with their cultivation, they left that warm little nest 2 years ago and were taken by their brother to wander on this planet. Slowly getting up, rubbing my sleepy eyes, I noticed the speckled sunlight shining down through the gaps between the leaves, illuminating my short hands. Good morning, Mr. Sunday. Unable to resist, the little girl reached out her hands and tried to hold the ray of sunshine in her palm. A pair of bright big eyes flickered slightly, and a pure smile appeared on his face. Today is another day full of hope. The little girl who got up from the boy's arms had a big lazy waist, feeling the slightly moist air between the grass leaves in the morning with some dew, making people feel particularly comfortable. Although there are only her and her brother, as long as her brother is around, even if life is difficult, the little girl can still maintain optimism every day. Gently rummaging through the small bag she had already sorted out last night, the little girl bounced and arrived at the creek she had found yesterday to start washing up seriously. My older brother said he wants to maintain hygiene, but for some reason, he himself is not very hygienic. The little girl has never seen him brush his teeth and wash his face. However, even so, my brother's body is still fragrant. Unlike myself, if I don't take a shower for 2 days, I feel a bit smelly. Listening to my brother say that this is the result of cultivation, I don't know when I will feel the bitter sea that my brother said. After washing up, she took out the ribbons that her brother had prepared for her, and tied 2 small braids for herself again. After seeing through the reflection on the water surface that there was no problem, the little girl happily returned to their sleeping place. At this moment, my brother, who was already asleep, had already woken up at some point. There was still a small pot hanging on the nearby campfire, boiling some messy things. To be honest, my brother's craftsmanship is really poor and the things he makes are not very delicious, but the little girl still eats happily. Because it was done by my brother. The little girl was happily eating there, with her brother cooking breakfast, while the boy next to him was holding a jade slip, feeling lost in thought. He seemed to have some understanding, and his body seemed to resonate with the world around him. The talent of young people is astonishing, even without anyone to teach them, they still shake the past and present. Just through the jade slips found, the youth's realm has reached an incredible level. Finally found it. Looking up, a ray of divine light lit up in the boy's eyes. Through the atmosphere of the mountains, rivers, and terrain, the boy successfully found a new target. Gently touching the little girl's head, the boy sighed as he watched the little girl happily eating what he had made. It has been 2 years, but the girl's cultivation has not improved at all. Even in the general sense of the mortal body, with so many resources thrown down, there should always be some changes. But the little girl's cultivation talent is so poor, even worse than what is commonly referred to as the mortal body. Do we really want him to embark on that destined path? The young man is very unwilling. No, I don't accept it. Holding the jade slip tightly in his hand, the young man's eyes were filled with a ray of divine light that seemed to be a golden flame burning. The blood on his body also flowed like rivers and oceans, with strange patterns emerging and disappearing. It was a killing intent from the ancient world, boiling and roaring. Taking a deep breath and then slowly exhaling, the boy finally suppressed the anger that had arisen from his powerlessness. After crossing over and personally feeling the despair from the darkness and turmoil, the young man swore to make his only relative always happy and joyful. But he knew that this matter was not so simple. With the fall of the great emperor, the suppression for thousands of years had already passed for a long time. But so far, no one has been able to lead a righteous path in this life, without a new emperor to protect all living beings. This life will also be extremely difficult. In the recent dark turmoil, he lost almost all his family and friends as he traveled through it. But who can guarantee that the next dark turmoil will come in how long? When will those supreme beings hidden deep in the penalty area start the next harvest? All of this is unknown, and by then, who can guarantee that they will be like last time? Survive due to being too weak and struggling to survive. I felt the uneasy emotions of the youth. After finishing breakfast obediently, the little girl carefully sorted out their luggage. The little girl didn't know why her brother was troubled and couldn't help him. The only thing she could do now was to be serious and not cause trouble for him. Are you ready to pack up? We should go now. Having adjusted his mood, he walked over and directly picked up the well-organized big bag that the little girl had organized. All right. Obediently following the big package, the little girl climbed onto the boy's back, sat on the big package, and immediately lay down, lowered her head, with a slightly muffled voice. She said happily, "You're ready. Let's go now." With a smile on his face, the young man stepped out several tens of meters away. Feeling the strong wind howling in her ears, the two little braids tied up were constantly swaying. The little girl quietly wanted to lift her head, but was forced to lower again by the strong wind pressure caused by the boy's speed. Even though she had experienced it countless times, the little girl lying behind the boy, being led by him, and shuttling through the forest still felt incredibly happy and excited. This speed is already very fast, but it is not the limit of a teenager, but the limit that a little girl can bear. Even though he was in a hurry, he couldn't go any faster. If he did, the boy was worried that the little girl behind him would not be able to bear it. Crossing rivers and trees, even the high mountains and lakes were as smooth as walking on the ground in front of the young man, without causing any obstacles to his progress. There is no magic weapon, nor is there a way to fly, the way the boy and little girl travel can only be so simple and simple. End of this chapter. Chapter 2, Brother is the number one in the world. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 2, Brother is the number one in the world. After traveling rapidly for about half a day, the little girl and boy saw their target, which was an incredibly majestic fairy mountain. Layered with mountains and starry sky, one can feel its uniqueness at a glance. I don't know why, even though it's such a towering mountain range, all they can feel after they get close is coldness. That is a desolate loneliness. Under that dark turmoil, the stronger the person, the faster they die. This immortal mountain and blessed land has already turned into a lonely dead city. Rather than being a blessed paradise, a more accurate explanation would be a large tomb. A large tomb formed due to the death of too many living beings. A place like this, the little girl and boy have passed by countless times. Under the turmoil of darkness, the weaker the life, the more likely it is to survive. And if these weak individuals want to continue to survive, they can only rely on large graves like this to possibly go further and embark on the path of immortality without returning. Wow, this place is so beautiful. Following the footsteps of the young man, the little girl and the two of them passed through an invisible thin film, which was the boundary of this fairy mountain paradise. But in front of them, it feels like it doesn't exist, unable to stop their footsteps at all. Even though the little girl is still just an ordinary little girl, she has not encountered any obstacles. All the difficulties have been solved by the youth unconsciously. There was no escape from the divine light in his eyes. Passing through the mountain protection formation, what comes into view is a sea of flowers. That is an endless ocean of flowers, swaying lightly with a gentle breeze. The little girl doesn't know what kind of flowers they are, but it gives her the feeling that they are very beautiful. This can't be blamed on her lack of vocabulary. Following her brother, although she has learned some words, she is still just a little girl. Unlike what the little girl saw, this sea of flowers was seen as graves in the eyes of the young man. Underneath them were corpses of people who had died in the recent dark turmoil. Their bodies turned into nourishment, creating this sea of flowers and beautiful scenery. However, to the young man, it looked so sad. Raising his hand, the aura condensed in his hand. In the sea of flowers, a spiritual light shone above each of the flowers, which was the spirit of the flowers and the most natural supplement. Legend has it that in ancient times, someone used it to brew immortal wine, but now it is just a tiny spiritual light in the hands of young people. Instantly withered, starting from the side of the little girl and boy, the entire flower sea began to wither. How could it be? The little girl was puzzled and didn't understand what had happened. A beautiful sea of flowers instantly withered away. But the boy didn't want to explain to her either. He gently condensed the spiritual light in his palm into a little bit, and then slowly landed on the forehead of the little girl, tracing the pattern of a petal. In an instant, it bloomed and disappeared, and in the next moment, the little girl had a faint fragrance of flowers on her body. Although she still couldn't feel the sea of suffering, the spiritual charm from 100 flowers was enough to bring her many benefits. Brother. Feeling her own transformation, the little girl opened her big eyes and looked curiously at the young man. This is the spirit of 100 flowers, a gift from this sea of flowers. The girl should thank them well. Looking at the innocent big eyes of the little girl, the boy couldn't bear to break her innocence and could only explain plunder in such a gentle way. Is this not a gift? The boy used his own creative method to forcibly plunder this flower sea. Thank you, Sister Flower. Holding the boy's hand, even though what he said was completely a lie, the little girl still gave him complete trust. Sincerely grateful for the gift this flower sea has given me. Alright, we should go now. There's more important things to do next. With a strong nod of her head, the little girl held the boy's hand and walked through the withered flower sea, continuing towards the depths of the secret realm. Passing through the desolate sea of flowers, all you can see is an incredibly majestic city. The majestic city wall was so high that the top could not be seen at first glance. Standing under the wall, the little girl glanced at the tall wall and then at her own brother before silently turning around, because she could already guess what his brother was going to do next. Also, this is not the first time. The boy reached out his hand and slowly covered the city wall, feeling it for a while, then slowly lifted his palm and clenched it into a fist. The road is as simple as ever. With a loud bang, it was a punch thrown out. The move that is known as the simplest way by teenagers is an ordinary punch. His body lit up with patterns, and the killing intent of Xian Gu was spreading. On him, those bright patterns were incredibly terrifying. Even though they appeared to be incomplete at first glance, anyone who knew the art would think that this was definitely the legendary third killing formation from the ancient world. It is unimaginable that this young man crazily engraved such a terrifying formation on himself, and it is truly insane to the extreme. He is definitely a ruthless person. Even if the formation is already incomplete and only a corner is left, the third killing formation of Xiangu is definitely no weaker than any great emperor formation pattern. Roaming and rumbling accompanied by a burst of gunpowder, followed by a gentle breeze, a hole appeared in front of the little girl and boy. Although not very broad, it is still enough for the two of them to pass. The little girl followed her brother, and in such a situation, the most likely way for the two of them to travel was like this. Simple yet efficient. My brother always says they don't have time to find the gate, but the little girl thinks this is definitely because my brother is too lazy. Brother is always like this, talking about complex things and teaching himself how to do it. But he has never achieved it himself. Girl. Don't learn from me. Next time you encounter a city wall with a permeating formation, don't learn from me. Just smash it directly. Everything has its own music, and as long as you disrupt their rhythm, you can easily destroy them. Although he knows that with the current state of being a little girl, it is completely impossible to understand what he sees, but every time, the young man still earnestly explains his thoughts to the little girl. This is also an alternative way of sorting out, and without anyone to teach him, he can only rely on this way to confirm his own path. Cute and open her big eyes, she nodded. Even if the little girl didn't understand, she would still work hard and remember every word of the boy in her heart. It's not because of anything else, it's just because my brother told me. Brother is the most powerful person in the world, what he said is absolutely right. Although he had never seen anyone else, the little girl firmly believed that her brother was definitely the most powerful person in the world. End of this chapter. Chapter 3, Being Taken Away. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 3, Being Taken Away. Woo 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 woo. A sound resembling the sound of dragons echoed in the distance, and the little girl and boy who had just stepped into the city wall heard the sound of a horn. It's like coming from ancient times in the vast expanse, and there must be a large army coming here at this moment. Brother. Feeling a little scared, she tightly held the hand of the young man next to her. The little girl had lived so long and had never encountered such a scene before. Even if you haven't seen it with your own eyes, the scent you feel from a distance is chilling. This is definitely a warrior belonging to a certain dynasty. Extremely powerful, one can sense the intense fighting spirit when approaching nearby. They don't seem to belong to this planet, they are exploring here. Just by the light passing through his eyes, the young man can make a judgment. Someone arrived here through the thing he was looking for. The five-colored altar, they came at a bad time. The army, who came from somewhere, arrived at this ancient star of life through the five-colored altar. And even worse, they seem to have been discovered. Blocking the little girl behind him and watching the rushing figures from afar, the young man put down his package and watched cautiously as the army galloped towards him from afar. The golden armor is full of majesty, and one can feel their terror at a glance. These people have absolutely high cultivation levels, and each one is a master of 100 battles. They belong to a certain cultivation dynasty and are exploring the corners of the world through the five-color altar. Even such a desolate planet cannot escape their control. There are survivors here, who definitely seem to have extraordinary bloodlines. I don't know whose voice sounded, and then the golden armor surrounding them automatically gave way to a path. A young man who looked like a broken fairy sat upright on a warhorse with dragon blood. He just glanced lightly, causing the little girl to shiver involuntarily. Wrinkling his brow, feeling the trembling of the little girl behind him, the patterns on the boy's body began to shine. The burning from the bloodline also began to boil, and the boiling golden blood seemed to be able to crush the eternal time and space. The young man did not give in and stared at the immortal sitting on the dragon blood battle horse. As if feeling the power of her brother, the little girl who had been hiding behind him trembling also stopped trembling. But there was still some fear, shrinking tightly into a ball and not daring to look up. Great, I didn't expect it to be an ancient holy body that took them away. He didn't care about the young man's offense, just like a towering deity who wouldn't pay attention to ants. Sitting on the dragon blood battle horse, the immortal Zhe calmly said something before turning around and leaving. And those warriors wearing golden armor responded in unison. Farewell to your godson. That character, like a broken immortal, is actually a descendant of a great emperor. It is also possible that he is the successor to a powerful dynasty of cultivation. There is no resistance, and there is no need to resist. Leaving here is the purpose of the youth. This planet is still too small, there is no way to provide him with a better growth environment, let alone find a way for the little girl to embark on her path of cultivation. So, no matter what, leaving here is necessary, but the appearance of these people completely disrupted the boy's plan. He had originally planned to wander in the starry sky using the 5-color altar to try his luck, but what he never expected was that these explorers from a certain cultivation dynasty. The boy's plan was completely disrupted in a completely unknown direction. Accompanied by a pair of golden soldiers, the little girl and the young boy were directly taken to the 5-colored altar. Then a soldier presented a token to the old man next to them, and they were taken directly to the altar. Accompanied by a feeling of dizziness, a noisy sound also appeared in their ears. Another newcomer has been sent here. Do you want to guess what their bloodline is? It seems extraordinary, just by perceiving the aura, one can understand. It's also a great figure of the future. Che, the future big shot. Which child here grew up not to be the future big shot? The voices were noisy, and they seemed to be discussing something, but the little girl and boy didn't understand at all. What exactly do their words mean? Are you too new here? Follow me. What is the situation that hasn't been reflected yet? An elderly man with gray hair appeared in front of them, seemingly plain, but the irresistible aura on his body made people know that he was an invincible saint in the world. The terrifying powerhouse of the 4-tiered sky in Sendai can be further called the Sage King. That is a terrifying powerhouse that is rare in 1,000 years. And at this moment, there is such a saint guiding them towards a village. Little one, since you're here, I'll tell you about the situation here. I believe you also have some special physique or extraordinary bloodline, otherwise you wouldn't have been sent to me. You should know that those who come here are people with special constitutions. As the saying goes, in the midst of a great struggle, the stars shine brightly. No one in this world can still lead the way, and the future will undoubtedly be an incredibly brilliant golden trend. The purpose of our feathered gods is to cultivate seeds in advance before the golden trend arrives, and you are the seeds we need to cultivate. The old man's gaze was sharp and calm, staring at the boy across from him. However, when he saw the little girl behind the boy, he couldn't help but frown. The mortal body. She is my sister, with me. He reached out and blocked the little girl who was startled by the old man behind him. The young man knew that things were not as simple as the old man said, and he didn't believe a word of what the old man said. Under the eaves, Koren has to bow his head, but there are still some things that cannot be compromised. I understand. Looking at the young man's resolute and uncompromising gaze, the old man nodded without saying anything more, and continued to lead them forward. Pulling my brother by the hem, that strange old man is really scary. Even more terrifying than those wearing golden armor just now, it's because they are too weak that the little girl can feel it particularly clearly. At that moment just now, if it weren't for her brother blocking in front of her, the little girl felt like she was about to die the next moment. Even a casual gaze from a saint, with a murderous intent, is not something that ordinary people can bear. And those who have never practiced actually have no secrets in the eyes of those great powers. There is no hidden possibility at a glance. Unless you have a special bloodline or treasure on your body, you can really see even your pores at a glance. End of this chapter. Chapter 4, Ending and Departing. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 4, Ending and Departing. The distance from the village was not very far, and they had already arrived at the entrance of the village after walking for a while. That is a quaint small village, but the feeling it gives is unexpectedly desolate. Not many people, the only thing you can see in the village is a group of children. Or rather, most of the people in this village are children. Although they are children, each one looks extraordinary. They all have a special physique or bloodline, and each one looks as if they were born divine. Among them, a guy who looked incredibly burly was staring at them intently. Tiger-backed and bare waist, that is the true tiger-backed and bare waist. Although not very old, they have already reached a height of about 2 meters, and their muscles are incredibly explosive, giving them an unusually sturdy appearance. What puzzled the little girl was that his brother was acting a bit strange at the moment. The expression on the burly guy that kept staring at him was an unprecedented strangeness for the little girl. Similarly, the burly guy also showed an extremely strange expression, as if suppressing or forcibly enduring something. That is a celestial body, and your ancient holy body is inherently incompatible. You two will have a battle sooner or later, but it's not now. The old man leading the way gave a faint glance at the big guy over there, and in an instant, it cooled from head to toe. The towering celestial body over there seemed to have been hit hard and calmed down. The little girl's brother, too, instantly calmed down. The old man stopped in front of a house and pointed to it, saying, "This will be your residence from now on. If there is anything you need to write on paper, someone will provide you with food every day. Just give them the paper." After speaking, the old man turned around and left directly. Leave only the little girl and boy standing there. "Let's go, it seems this will be our home from now on." Taking the little girl's hand, the young man whispered to her, stepped forward, and pushed open the door of the house. She obediently nodded and followed her brother, and the little girl was also curious and looking forward to this future residence. The house is not big, but it has everything it should have. It's just a strange thing, with only one bed. Obviously, this is a single room. The old man did not include the little girl, because perhaps the old man did not even consider the mortal body. However, it doesn't matter either. After all, even in the wilderness, the two of them slept together, and since their bodies haven't grown up yet, sleeping in a single bed together doesn't make them feel crowded. Wow, it's so soft. Lying happily on the bed, feeling the softness of the thick blanket under her body, the little girl's face showed an incredibly happy expression. She is such an easily satisfied little girl. A simple and comfortable bed can make her happy all day. "Nan, please tidy up your home first. I'll go check the situation outside and inquire about some news." Petting the little girl lying on the bed, the boy stood up and turned to leave the room. Slowly getting up from the bed, she opened the large package placed next to the boy, and the little girl began to carefully organize their luggage. Place them everywhere in the house, then clean up the dust around them. After feeling almost done, I nodded in satisfaction. She was raised by her brother and is a very clean girl, which is the result of her brother's teachings. Even though my brother's role model is not very good, the little girl has developed good habits. Boom boom. Boom boom. The little girl was still tidying up the room, but in the next moment, the vibration of the ground and the distant rumbling sound made her stop involuntarily. Looking at the door with some worry, "Brother, he hasn't come back yet. Do you want to go out and take a look?" She was a bit worried about her brother, but the little girl knew that going out would only cause trouble for her brother. After hesitating for a while and wandering around the door for 3 or 4 times, the little girl finally made up her mind to go out and take a look. If she didn't go far, just go out and take a look. In the end, the little girl couldn't help but step out of the house and walk towards the location where the vibration came from afar. On the way, there were other children walking in that direction, and it was obvious that they were all going to watch the excitement. The vibration became louder and louder, even though the little girl lingered in the room for a while without stopping. It's like there are two fierce beasts in the distance, fighting there, and the sound of the collision between their bodies echoes incessantly. Accidentally, the little girl didn't step on the ground firmly due to the vibration, so she threw herself forward and fell to the ground. "How are you? Are you okay?" Feeling distressed, she rubbed the place where she fell. Before the little girl could get up, a girl's voice suddenly appeared in her ear. Looking up, the little girl saw a sister with long black hair. Wearing a black skirt, she looks very beautiful. Beside her, there is a sister who looks exactly like him, wearing a white dress. The sister in the black long dress smiled and helped the little girl who had fallen to the ground up, then squatted directly in front of her, stretched out her hands, and lit up an emerald green light, covering the wound where the little girl fell. "Thank you, sister." Being obediently at the mercy of the black long skirt sister, feeling the comfortable feeling of being touched by the black long skirt sister, the little girl was very grateful. "My brother once said thank you for receiving help. Don't be so polite. My name is Gue Zhong, and she is Gue Li. We are both twins, both of whom are immortal bodies. Little one, what's your name and physique? Do you also want to see those two monsters fight? Let's go together." Wearing a black long dress, the ending is very familiar, just a long question that makes the little girl wonder where to start. Stupid and somewhat panicked. Gently tapping her sister's head, she stood by her dying side. Her twin sister, wearing a white long dress, shook her head helplessly and smiled softly at the little girl, saying, "Let's talk while we walk." As she spoke, she also followed her fate and walked over, directly pulling up the other hand of the little girl. Led by two older sisters towards the direction of the vibration, the little girl also made a serious self-introduction. "My name is Nan Nan, and I was brought here with my brother by a very aggressive old man. As for what constitution? I don't know about this either." End of this chapter. Chapter 5, The Heavenly Body and the Ancient Holy Body. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 5, The Heavenly Body and the Ancient Holy Body. I just don't know why. My brother has been working hard to help me find a way, but so far, I still can't feel the pain, he said. The little girl was a bit distressed. Although she had just met these two sisters, her passion and familiarity towards the end made her feel like she had known each other for a long time. Naturally, she shared her own troubles with the two beautiful sisters. "Is that right?" With a smile, he looked at the little girl and continued, "Do you need me to check your body? My sister and I have a fairy-like body that is most compatible with the laws of heaven and earth, and we should be able to feel some problems." She was full of confidence at the end of her life, and she was incredibly confident in her fairy-like abilities. Ending. Just standing on the other side of the little girl, Geely directly spoke up to stop her. Compared to being passionate, but somewhat immature, it is obvious that as a sister, Geely thinks more. Even if you want to help, you still need to meet the brother mentioned by the little girl first. Otherwise, interfering blindly without the consent of the other brother will cause trouble for oneself. In addition, the strange bloodlines in this village all have various ailments, and Geely doesn't want to fight the strange guys with Guizhong anymore. That's right, although the people brought into this village by the Feathered God dynasty have various strange constitutions and magical bloodlines, it seems that because of this, they are still just children with powerful bloodlines. Young people have powerful abilities, but there is no one to teach them. Their minds are not yet mature, and it is easy for them to produce various strange things. And there are really many strange creatures in this village. The twins have a similar heart, and Geely only called out his sister's name. In an instant, Gui Ding understood her meaning. Feeling a bit embarrassed, I scratched my head and awkwardly smiled at my sister. Upon hearing her sister's shout, she finally remembered the trouble she had caused them last time. She felt a bit embarrassed, but she still looked like a dead pig not afraid of boiling water, continuing to chat with the little girl heartlessly and passionately. With a helpless sigh, Geely looked at her younger sister and didn't say much anymore. Although it may be troublesome, to be honest, if they really want to fight, they are not afraid either. Their fairy body is one of the top constitutions in the world. Moreover, they are still fighting 2 against 1. Even when facing someone who is 1 level higher than them, although they may not be able to defeat them, at least they will not fail. Passing through a bamboo forest outside the village, one can directly see the endpoint surrounded by a group of people. Whether standing on the eaves or sitting among the branches, a group of children watched the battle between the two. Brother. Looking at the 2 people fighting ahead, the little girl was somewhat surprised, but she didn't feel any surprise. After all, You don't have to think about the strange appearance of my brother just now. There must be a problem. It's only reasonable to be fighting that big guy there now. It won't surprise the little girl. Which is your brother? Is it the ancient holy body or the heavenly dominance body? With the little girl, they came straight to a tall tree and sat on the treetop, asking curiously in the end. It should be the ancient holy body, that's how the fierce old man called his brother. Really? Then your brother is really amazing. I sighed at the end, looking at the two people fighting below, feeling a bit eager to try and wanting to get involved. Reaching out his hand and lightly tapping his own sister's head again, Geely directly prevented his sister's suicidal thought from the source. Although their immortal bodies are very powerful, the vast majority of their special effects are reflected in their cultivation and helping others cultivate. In terms of combat, the bonus is not too much. It's not as special as the heavenly body and the ancient holy body. Those two abnormal constitutions can really be called invincible in the same realm. Although their cultivation level is not very high, they are already incomparable in their physical bodies. Just like the battle between the two people below now, it's like two ancient beasts fighting each other. This is not all of them. If we really take it seriously, as long as it's not a high realm, they can fight. Even if it's a high realm, they may not be able to defeat them. Going beyond the 8 realms and entering the divine realm is not a joke. They are still chatting here, and the battle below has reached a white heat level. The two of them have a tacit understanding, neither using their own cultivation, but simply using the most primitive physical strength, colliding and fighting. But the damage they have caused remains incredibly terrifying. Every punch and every foot can tear apart the earth, and the power comparable to that of a dragon is incredibly shocking. Although the little girl's brother looks much worse in physique than the opposite heavenly overlord, his strength is not inferior at all. After all, the ancient Holy Communion is known for its powerful system, and this kind of frontal combat is the most suitable. Of course, the same goes for the celestial body on the opposite side. They all possess the courage of 10,000 men. The earth is torn apart, and trees are like pieces of paper, easily destroyed. At this moment, the heavenly overlord's body is already scarred, but on the other hand, there are not many scars on the little girl's brother. In terms of strength, the little girl's brother is not on par with others, but in terms of skills, it is obvious that she is much better than her brother. The little girl's brother can be said to be a true genius, but with just a few simple encounters, he has already seen the other party's tricks clearly. It is only natural to draw analogies and learn something simple at a glance. That young man's talent amazed the years and shook everyone watching here. Although there was still a slight setback at the beginning, there was no chance of winning after only a few rounds of confrontation with the heavenly overlord. Do you still want to continue fighting? Another over-shoulder fall slammed the heavenly overlord fiercely, smashing several large trees with a thud. The little girl's brother did not continue to pursue, just spoke calmly and asked. The conflicting impulses of his bloodline had completely dissipated after a few encounters, and it was obvious that his blood knew that the other party was not his opponent. There is no need to fight again. Of course. The wound on his body was flowing blood, and at this moment, the towering body of the heavenly overlord looked more like a demon. He was unwilling to accept it. Even though it wasn't like this at the beginning, how could the other side be so strong? He is very angry about his own weakness. He suddenly got up from the ground and immediately came back to the little girl's brother. With a slap of shattered mountain and river power, he fiercely shouted up again. End of this chapter. Chapter 6, Planning, Sacrifices. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 6, Planning, Sacrifices, Board. Faced with the already insane celestial body, the little girl's brother only took a gentle step forward with a single blow of his own cultivation, and directly came to the embrace of the celestial body. With a fierce punch, the heavenly overlord was thrown out again. The main road leads to simplicity. This time, the heavenly overlord could no longer get up, and all the visceral fragments mixed in the blood were directly vomited out. "Alright, that's it." At that moment, a young man who looked like a fairy suddenly appeared in the field, standing in the middle of the two. That young man was the little girl they had seen before, the immortal sitting on a dragon blood battle horse. Now I know, he is the legendary feather god's son. He is a descendant of a great emperor. Similarly, he is one of the managers here. Standing there, like a fairy-like feathered goddess, one feels intimidated. He just calmly glanced at the audience sitting on the treetop, and was so scared that some children fell off directly from it. There was a hint of warmth in my eyes as I saw the little girls and their place. It is obvious that the little girl was not seen by him, and his passion was aimed at Guizhong and Gili, the twin fairy sisters. Following the gaze of Yuhua Shensi, the little girl's brother also saw what he had noticed. Retrieving his gaze, Yuhua Shensi looked at the ancient holy body with appreciation and smiled, extending his hand to invite him. "Your talent is good, do you want to follow me?" Turning around, the little girl's brother didn't answer, so he turned around and left without giving any face to the feathered goddess. "The fight has already ended, and it is no longer necessary to stay here, let alone why my sister has come out. We need to quickly end this riot." The scene was a bit awkward for a moment, as I looked at my own ancient holy body. The aura of Yuhua Shensi, resembling that of a folding immortal, paused slightly, and a sharp edge couldn't help but appear in his eyes. "Alright, since we've finished watching the excitement, we should also leave now." Staring coldly at the feathered goddess below, feeling his malicious departure, he calmly spoke up and left with his own sister and little girl. Although they may seem heartless, as both immortal beings, they also feel the warmth in the eyes of the feather transformation divine sun towards them. Without saying anything more, I followed my own sister and left directly with the little girl. Watching the scattered crowd, ignoring the few guys who had come to please him, the feathered fairy-like deity turned around and left. The atmosphere solidified to the extreme, and just after Yuhua Shensi left, several people wearing golden armor appeared and took away the heavily injured heavenly overlord from there. These people with special bloodlines cannot die, they have a more important mission. In the Feather God dynasty, an incredibly majestic palace, the Feather God's son is half kneeling in the center of the hall, calmly recounting the gains of these years. Immortal body, ancient holy body, heavenly dominant body, divine king body, born Buddha. It seems that the future golden trend is truly unprecedented. I don't know who can come to the end of this life. Listening to the special constitutions reported by Yuhua Shensi, I don't know where the sound came from, so I sighed. The sound is melodious, as if it comes from ancient times. In the brilliant world, we have already taken the lead. No matter how powerful they are just stepping stones. Another voice sounded, and he was very proud, completely ignoring those special constitutions. These are not important, what's going on at Qingxian Ding? We need a blood sacrifice, but not now. The sacrifices you have collected are not enough. Really? Then let's wait a little longer. Quietly kneeling there, Yuhua Shensi listened to the conversation of those voices without making any sound. Because he knows he has no right to speak here. Wait, those old folks. One day, I'll have you kneel here and talk to me too. Swearing secretly in his heart, how could he, who was naturally proud, endure such humiliation? However, although it was almost unbearable, he still didn't show any signs on the surface. Those who speak are the ancestors of the Feather God dynasty. They are all a group of elderly immortals who are about to die, self-proclaimed until now, in order to find the Qingxian Ding that they found a long time ago. Feathered and soaring, they firmly believe that they can use the immortal cauldron to break a path to the immortal realm, allowing the entire Feathered God dynasty to soar to the immortal realm together. For the sake of immortality and immortality, many people in this world have gone crazy, hiding in the depths of the forbidden zone. Those supreme beings who cut themselves with a knife are like this. It is obvious that these immortals of the Feather God dynasty are also like this, but they are even more arrogant, trying to fly together with the entire Feather God dynasty. Using all the geniuses and seeds of a golden age as sacrifices to achieve the entire Feather God dynasty. However, all of this has little to do with the little girls for the time being. The Feathered God dynasty is still preparing, and their special constitutions, such as the Fate and Separation, have not yet grown up and are not enough to serve as sacrifices. So, they at least have a peaceful time to spend, but it's not long. Plans can start at any time, and their fate is already predetermined. Under the wild gaze of the Feather God dynasty, they will also be just sacrificial victims. Regardless of whether the plan of the Feather God dynasty is successful or not. It's all like this. The fate of the future is always the future, and now they don't know those timeless plans. Returning home with Geely and the little girl, they return to the residence of the little girl and her brother. It is obvious that the older brother of the little girl who left first, the Holy Communion of Aragia, has already been waiting here. Looking at her calm brother sitting there, the little girl felt a bit panicked and lost. After being flustered for a while, I finally made up my mind and obediently came to my brother to admit my mistake. I'm sorry. Her brother asked her to stay at home before, but she didn't listen to him. Alright, don't put on a bad face. Isn't it just coming out to play? What's the big deal? Standing at the door, watching the obedient little girl waiting to be trained, although she had not yet dealt with the ancient holy body, she still spoke directly in the end. Defend against injustice for the little girl. But this is also what she said from the bottom of her heart, just curious to come out and take a look, what's the big deal? Looking at her impulsive younger sister, Geely also shook her head helplessly, not knowing when she would mature a bit. This is clearly the other party's family matter, even if they manage it, it will be difficult to please. However, my younger sister's personality is just like that, and there is no other way. End of this chapter. Chapter 7, Teasing. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 7, Teasing. Looking at this young girl who looked like a little hen protecting her calf, the little girl's brother was a little curious. They probably haven't known each other for long, have they? What's going on? Seems like I've become a big villain. But since that's the case, then let's be a big villain. Thinking in his heart, the young man spoke up and asked, Are you all? I am Geely, and she is my younger sister who came uninvited. Please forgive me. Unlike her own silly little sister, the girl with a cold expression, Geely, took a step forward to introduce her before her silly sister spoke up. Looking at the two identical girls, the little girl's brother nodded to the noisy Geely, and then looked at his sister, who was thoughtful and heartfelt. Although curiosity is human nature, if a girl doesn't listen, she will also be punished. Let me think about it. How about punishing you to copy the Taoist scriptures 5 times? The voice is gentle, but the words spoken give an irresistible dignity. The little girl who lowered her head and silently agreed, knowing she had done something wrong, did not refute. But standing next to her, she ended up staring at the little girl's brother in anger. What? Do you have any objections? With great interest, the young man calmly spoke up and provoked as he watched his face bulge with anger as he passed away. The behavior of the older brother who had been staring at the little girl, Geely on the side, did not feel any malice, and then looked at his silly sister before speaking again. In a sense, these two older brothers and sisters have reached a consensus that bullying the foolish sister is the most interesting thing. Due to the fact that the little girl was too sensible, the young man had never encountered such a situation before and suddenly felt a bit aroused. And Geely, who stood on the side, was also very interested in watching the play. What's wrong with some opinions? Staring angrily at the young man, he returned home very impolitely. If you have any objections, then hold on. If you don't agree, you can give it a try. Smiling and speaking, the boy continued to provoke. Just give it a try. Without hesitation or any warning, the next second's end had already arrived behind the young man. The spiritual light on his hand fiercely patted towards the back of the young man's head. Still muttering in his mouth. Let this guy pretend like this. At the moment when her younger sister was provoked and couldn't help it, Geely covered her face with some disdain. My younger sister is really going to have bad luck now. To die, sister. At the moment of her final act, the little girl had not yet realized it. It was only when she suddenly appeared behind her brother that she realized it and instinctively spoke up. She is not worried about her brother, because in her heart, he is an invincible existence. On the contrary, the older sister who is both familiar and narrow-minded is the one she worries about. Although my own brother is very good, sometimes he still has some bad taste, which the little girl is very clear about. The little girl is very worried about how her sister will be bullied by her own brother when she returns home. Interesting. At the moment of dying and taking action, what the young girl saw was different from that of an ordinary person, and he felt more. The energy around seemed to be under some kind of control, completely obeying the girl's commands. She is like the darling of nature, the child of the Tao. Although she is not like a congenital Tao, she can also be called the darling of the Wan Tao. With a gentle tilt of his head, the young man dodged the blow of Guijing and grabbed the girl's wide sleeve. Then, with a flick, Guijing's entire arm was instantly tied up by her own wide sleeve. Dancing like a butterfly, unable to hit with a single hit but restrained in its final moments, it had no intention of stopping, like a light butterfly spinning in the air. In an instant it twisted the blockade on its sleeve, stretched out its foot, and stepped directly onto the young man's face. As if he had anticipated it before, the boy grabbed the girl's foot and threw it out of the door without hesitation. Wow! Unexpectedly, the young man's actions were thrown out and he couldn't help but exclaim in surprise. However, in the next moment, the young man who appeared at an unknown time had already arrived at the door, extending his hand again and shaking it. The girl's body spun uncontrollably in mid-air. The hair and clothes were flying, and soon they were wrapped into a zongzi shape. The wide cuffs are tied together and form a bow style. I didn't do it again, just watched with great interest as I passed away feeling dizzy. Because at this moment, the girl with a silent and cold expression had already arrived by his side at some point. Although she has the same physique, unlike her younger sister, Geely is obviously more adept at using it. At the moment she took action, even the young man did not feel any change, as if she naturally appeared there and completely integrated into the surrounding environment. It's like air, completely non-existent, but she just appeared there without any sense of discord. Crouching in front of the still dizzy Gueli, she looked at her sister who was bound into zongzi and shrunk into a ball. Gueli's face was smiling, but her voice was like that of a teenager behind her. Enough, if we continue to bully, I will be angry. Her voice was equally gentle, and there was no hint of anger in her smile, but the changes in her surroundings made it clear that she was definitely not joking. If the sisters work together, it is definitely not that simple that 1 + 1 is greater than 2. Their physique is very special, and as twins, they can be said to have a mutual understanding and support. This also means that even as a young man with the Holy Communion of the past, there is no possibility of gaining an advantage in the face of the alliance of these two young girls. On the contrary, if there is really a fight, one is okay to say, but if two are together, it's not certain who loses and who wins. After all, even if a teenager has exceptional talent, they are still just self-learning. There is still a lot to learn, and even if their talent is good, they still need to learn. The foundation for being able to create their own unique skills is having enough knowledge. The teenager who has been self-learning and growing up until now has also reached a bottleneck in a sense. Damn it. After a while, Guijing finally returned to normal from that dizzy state, feeling his body unable to move. Guijing glared angrily at the young man who had already sat down there. But the little girl didn't know when she had already taken out the paper and started copying. Alright, don't act recklessly either. After all, this is the other person's family matter. Sister. Looking at my sister, I feel a little wronged in the end. It's clearly me who was being bullied, okay. End of this chapter. Chapter 8, Physical Fitness. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 8, Physical Fitness. Alright, if you still feel unhappy, next time we're together, I'll avenge you. Covering his mouth with a wide sleeve, Geely smiled and patted Gue Zhong's head. A flash of light scattered the clothes that tied it into Zhongzi, and Gue Zhong was also rescued from the bondage. Angry, he glanced at the little girl's brother again and ran to her side to copy the Taoist scriptures with her. Isn't it just 5 times? I'll help you copy it twice. The act of ending her life left the little girl feeling a bit at a loss for a moment. She instinctively looked at her own brother. No problem, she copied it as well. Smiling and shaking his head, the punishment was originally like a joke, and if someone else helped, the young man wouldn't care. I walked aside with Geely, who was standing next to me at some point, and watched as I had forgotten my previous troubles. I happily played with the little girl until the end. Gue left his mouth and asked the young man, "What is your sister's physique?" I heard from her that so far I haven't been able to feel the sea of pain. Upon hearing Gue Li's words, he was momentarily stunned before the young man replied, "What I want to say should be in mortal form. It may even be worse." Really? Then you're really working hard. What? Do you have any way to help her? If you can help her feel the sea of suffering, I owe you one favor. The young man's expression was very serious. No need, I also quite like that little girl. Looking at the well-behaved little girl, Geely's face couldn't help but show a sincere and gentle smile. I just don't know if I can help her. Regardless of whether it's possible or not, I have taken note of this favor. The young man nodded, as if he had thought of something, and asked seriously, "By the way, do you know the situation here? My sister and I are new here and need some understanding." Shaking his head, Geely also said helplessly, "We actually came here not much earlier than you, and our situation may be even worse than what you know." "Is it because of your special physique?" "That's right." Geely nodded and then looked seriously into the boy's eyes, saying, "Fairy body, my sister and I are both. Do you understand what it means? Is it a fairy-like body?" No wonder. The young man was lost in thought, recalling the brief confrontation with Gue Jing just now. After receiving the answer, it instantly made sense. And at the same time, I also thought of some very bad things. The living environment of the sisters may be even worse than that of themselves and the little girl. Anyway, I am a man myself, and my younger sister and little girl do not have any special physique and will not be subject to too much scrutiny. Even in the worst-case scenario, the ancient holy body may only be used as a human medicine for practice. But the other party is different. The immortal body is the most compatible constitution with the laws of heaven and earth. This physique not only has abnormal cultivation talents and speed, but also can use spiritual or immortal power from heaven and earth to supplement spiritual or immortal power for others, and even control the source of spiritual or immortal energy. Because the immortal body is a very rebellious constitution, there are very few people with this constitution, just like the chaotic body and the innate holy body Tao fetus. Don't worry about immortal energy for now. In the current sky-covered universe, there is no such thing as immortal energy anymore. The real reason why the sisters are in a bad situation is that the immortal body is also one of the legendary best Ding Furnace's physiques. No wonder that feathered goddess looked at you with an incorrect gaze. I'm afraid you've already been targeted by him. Yeah, it does give me a headache, but actually it's not the key. What do I need to do? I didn't inquire about Geely's secret. Since they were willing to help the little girl, the boy was willing to help them. As long as the matter does not involve his own sister, the young man is fearless, even if he is facing the feathered god like a folding fairy now, and even if he sacrifices his life, the young man has confidence to overcome it. Although it may be troublesome, things are not as bad as you imagine. In a month, we will be heading to a special secret realm. At that time, I am very worried that the feather transformation divine son will forcefully attack me and my sister. I want to form an alliance with you and watch and help each other in that secret realm. Although I don't know much about it, the returning sisters who arrive here earlier than the little girls and teenagers always know more about it. For example, the secret realm we are going to next month. Teenagers have no concept at all. This is definitely not the first time, nor will it be the last time. It doesn't seem rare for someone to set off for a special secret realm like this. As if feeling the boy's concern, Geely explained, "Don't worry about the little girl, she doesn't have to go." Why? The young man was very puzzled. Because the mortal body is of no use to those people. Understood. Upon hearing Gue Li's explanation, the young man instantly understood the situation. Letting them go to the secret realm is to cultivate them, but the ordinary body of the younger sister and little girl is completely ignored by those people. So, in a sense, there is no danger. As long as she is okay, then my sister will be fine. Thinking of this, the young man also nodded and looked at the girl with a cold expression. It was obvious that she also had a secret, perhaps it was a certain inheritance, or perhaps it was something else. These are not important to the teenager, as long as she can help her sister. Okay, I promise you, I will help you deal with Yuhua Shensi. Thank you very much, Holy Communion. No need to thank you. The boy turned his head and his gaze fell back on the little girl, their direction. Geely also looked towards that side together. Actually, I think we are very similar. We are all people who will do everything for our sister. Headless and brainless, Geely suddenly spoke up. Really, maybe. The young man remained non-committal and after a while, suddenly asked, "That's why you were willing to believe me when you first met?" The boy is a bit curious. Who knows? With a wicked smile, Geely walked directly towards the little girls. Watching Geely naturally blend into the two little ones and play with them. The boy couldn't help but smile and turned around to leave the room. He still has a lot of things to do. He was delayed by the battle with the heavenly overlord before, but now he needs to take advantage of the time to quickly inquire about some news. I won't talk about the young man going outside to inquire about the news for now. Today is definitely the happiest day for the little girl in all these years. Although she was punished by her older brother to plagiarize the Taoist scriptures, even if she was punished by her brother, she felt happy because she was accompanied by Sister Guijing and Sister Geely. End of this chapter. Chapter 9, Solitude. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 9, Solitude. Happy times always pass quickly, and the time living in this small village can be said to be the happiest period for the little girl. Life is carefree, and she has some older brothers and sisters accompanying her every day. In addition, she also made many new friends. Just like the guy who got into a fight with his brother when he first arrived, who looked very aggressive, the heavenly dominant big brother, although he looked very big and aggressive, was surprisingly easy to get along with. There is also a bald older brother, who seems to be born as a Buddha after hearing from Guijing's sister. Not letting the girl have more contact with him seems to be because she will be treated or something. Of course, the little girl doesn't understand what being treated means. But she still obediently listened. Even though she didn't feel anything, the bald older brother was also very good. But since it was Guizhong's sister who told her, there shouldn't be anything wrong. After all, Guizhong's sister is someone who treats her well like her brother. In addition, what made the little girl feel even happier was that with the help of Sister Gui and Sister Guili, the faint little girl could finally feel the existence of the sea of suffering. It was really not easy. I still remember that day when Sister Guijing and Sister Geely were exhausted and half alive to help her. It made her feel a bit embarrassed. Unconsciously, it has been a month since I came here. Today's brother and dying sister are going on an adventure. My brother told her this, and as for when he will come back, he doesn't know. but with his sister and her companions, there shouldn't be anything wrong, right? Standing in the crowd, watching the shining young girls standing in the colorful altar, the little girl's eyes were filled with longing. Especially when seeing the most shining young man in the crowd, that longing turned into immense admiration. Brother is indeed the most powerful, even compared to the brothers and sisters here, he is also the most powerful. Accompanied by the dazzling light of the five-colored altar, the young girls on the altar also disappeared, and the crowd without any excitement gradually dispersed, leaving only the little girl standing there in a daze. This is the first time she has been separated from her brother since she was so old. For a moment, she felt a bit at a loss and didn't know what to do. Growing up to now, her brother is everything in her life. No matter what happens, no matter when, no matter how difficult it is, as long as she can see her brother, the little girl can feel happy. But now, my brother has suddenly left, and the little girl is particularly uncomfortable. I patted my little cheek to cheer myself up and not make my brother worry. We need to work hard to cultivate. Encouraged herself, even though the pace of cultivation slowed down to the extreme, she hardly felt any improvement. However, because that was what her brother asked her to do, even if she didn't feel any improvement or change, the little girl still persisted in practicing hard every day. Time passes quickly during cultivation, and a day passes like that. The morning sun shone through the window and fell into the room, shining on the little girl's face. Feeling the warm sunshine, the petal at the center of the little girl's forehead flickered for a moment, then gradually dimmed. Brother and the others have left, and there is no one here to deliver food. Even the little girl's brother didn't realize this, he didn't realize that those people really didn't take little girls, such ordinary people, seriously. Perhaps they have completely forgotten the existence of this little girl. After all, those genius youths have already reached the secret realm for cultivation through the five-color altar, and the ordinary people who stay here are of no use. Arriving at the big water tank, she shook a handful of clean water and started washing up. After tidying herself up, the little girl went to the small courtyard and began her daily cultivation. The small body was dancing in the yard, like a nimble deer, flickering and moving like a butterfly dancing between flowers. This is a dance taught to her by Sister Gili. Although she didn't know what its purpose was, Sister Gili asked her to practice it every day, saying it was beneficial for her body. In addition, her brother also said the same, so she persisted. The body became very light, and at the moment when the little girl confidently took the next step, she pounced and fell directly to the ground. She smiled foolishly, rubbed the forehead she touched, and got up again. Sure enough, it still doesn't work. I can't do it as beautifully as Sister Goe and the others. However, compared to the beginning, she has made a lot of progress. The little girl felt a step further than the last time and was filled with joy. Although she may accidentally fall every time, every little progress can make the little girl feel incredibly satisfied. Since starting her cultivation, the little girl won't feel hungry anymore. There seemed to be an endless power within her body, but all of this was due to the petal on her forehead. According to my older brother, this state doesn't seem to last long and I don't know when it will disappear. Even so, the little girl is already very satisfied. In the past, even with that petal, it was impossible to use it. Now, although it consumes quickly, being able to feel the change is already enough. The days without my brother were spent day by day like this, from being patient at the beginning, to gradually going to the five-colored altar to wait for my brother and his companions to come back, and eventually experiencing disappointment time and time again. The little girl also felt for the first time what loneliness is. Living in a small village where she was the only one, it felt like he was separated from the whole world. Small patches gradually began to appear on the originally beautiful little clothes on the body. Although it still looks clean, the feeling of being down and out can be felt even from a distance. Brother, haven't you come back yet? Once again, the little girl stood in the crowd, looking at the five-colored altar from a distance. I once again felt disappointed. The little girl misses her brother. She didn't expect her brother's departure to last so long. Based on the marks she made on the bedside every day, it had been 10 days, but the brother still hadn't returned. Not only my older brother, but also my sister Guizhong and sister Gili. There is no news yet. Returning to their small courtyard, the little girl couldn't help but have tears swirling in her eyes. However, she still struggled to hold back her tears. Work hard and don't cry, brother. They will come back soon. With so much effort to comfort herself, the little girl was able to continue to persevere. End of this chapter. Chapter 10, Return. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 10, Return. It was another quiet morning, and the little girl began her daily cultivation as usual. It has been 15 days and my brother still hasn't come back. My small body shrank into a ball and crouched in the center of the small courtyard. Tears could no longer be suppressed. She missed her brother, but he still hasn't come back. I have already been to the 5-color altar today. Brother and the others still haven't received any news. The little girl tried hard not to cry, but she was still just a child. Even if she is sensible, she is just a little girl. A few minutes ahead of time, a dusty young man walked out of the 5-colored altar in a somewhat disheveled state. Looking at the two equally disheveled girls around her, she glanced at each other and couldn't help but laugh at the same time. Let's go back quickly, little girl should have been waiting for a long time. The young man looked at the direction of home and couldn't wait any longer. Okay, let's go back quickly. I also missed the little girl very much. The end by his side also smiled. As soon as they arrived at the door, the boys and girls saw the little girl squatting there, huddled together in a small ball and looking incredibly pitiful. That's right, it's really difficult for such a young child to stay here alone. Reaching out his hand, a bronze fragment appeared in the boy's hand. After thinking for a moment, the boy directly broke the bronze fragment into 2 pieces, one big and one small. Then he pinched it twice with his hand, and a somewhat rudimentary mask appeared in his hand. And another smaller fragment was forcefully squeezed into a circular ring by him with force. Looking at his masterpiece with satisfaction, the boy put a bronze mask on his face and flashed with a smile, suddenly appearing in front of the little girl squatting there, amidst the disdainful gaze of the 2 young girls beside him. The little girl who was originally entrusted to Chu Baba was startled by the sudden appearance of an ugly-looking mask. Then he was stunned for a moment, saw the eyes under the mask, and instantly reacted. Brother! With a shout, tears involuntarily welled up in his eyes, and he pounced with joy. Cry and laugh at the same time. Brother, Sister Gueli, you have finally returned. Feeling the excited mood of the little girl, the mask that was originally made to make the little girl happy to play on his face involuntarily fell off. The young man smiled helplessly and said apologetically, I'm back. I've kept you waiting for a long time, girl. No, I just can't help it, the little girl cried and smiled as she saw her brother coming back. She should have been happy, but for some reason, her tears couldn't stop. With a smile, she reached out and gently helped the little girl wipe away her tears. The falling bronze mask also slowly floated up, changing as it floated. From its ugliness, it was completely indistinguishable from what style of mask it was, becoming a half-crying and half-laughing appearance. Gently carrying the mask onto the little girl's head, the boy smiled and said, How did the toy I made for you go? Do you like it? Speaking, there was also a bronze-style ring in his hand. Although the mask was ugly and the ring looked simple, it was a toy given to her by her brother, and the tears in the little girl's eyes gradually stopped, leaving only happiness. Smiling as he took the bronze ring, he was extremely happy. Alright, what does this thing you made look like? Don't you have any points in mind? Just bully our little girl. The young man glanced at him and waited behind him for a long time to come to his end. He pushed the young man away and then carried him up. Let my sister see if the girl has lost weight. No, thank you, sister. After all, this was done by my brother himself. Smiling and letting go, looking at her own situation, the little girl was really too happy. After playing around for a while, they finally returned to the room. Looking at the exceptionally clean but spacious room, the boy saw the little girl wearing clothes with some patches and frowned slightly. If there is thought, the reason is instantly understood. The kind of dance they hand over to the little girl, such as Gui Zhong and Gui Li, would cost a lot of clothes if practiced every day. Moreover, the clothes worn by the little girl are only made of ordinary materials, and it is natural for them to be damaged if practiced every day. Moreover, based on the situation along the way, it can be seen that no one has come here except for their return. That is to say, these days only the little girl has been alone. Even those people who come to deliver food on a daily basis have never come. He regretted not noticing this in advance, but it was all too late. The 100 flowers spirit on the little girl's forehead has not left much to consume in these days. If I don't come back for another month or two, I'm afraid the little girl will starve to death. Feeling a little heartbroken, he touched the little girl's head again, and the boy walked into the kitchen that had not been visited for a long time. Looking at the clean kitchen without any food, the boy began to take action. Taking out the precious spiritual talent obtained from the secret realm, the 1,000-year great medicine king. Although the craftsmanship was not very good, the boy still started cooking seriously. Watching the young man busy in the kitchen, standing outside the door chatting with the little girl, I couldn't help but turn black. These days, they haven't eaten less of this guy's dark cuisine. They can only say they can eat it. Once it's cooked, don't think about the taste or anything else. It can't be said to be unpleasant, it can only be said to be tasteless. Moreover, even if the best thing falls into the hands of that guy, it can magically create a feeling that is hard to swallow. In a sense, the culinary talent of this ancient holy body is truly speechless. However, even if the food cooked by the young man was unpleasant, the little girl was still very happy when the food was served. The taste is still as unpleasant as usual, but this is my brother's taste. Under the stunned gaze at the end of her life, the little girl surprisingly finished all her food. Although there is no problem with the ingredients used by teenagers, they are all good things, but... Shaking his head, he didn't want to think about the unforgettable taste anymore, and the look in his eyes at the little girl grew even more heartbroken. After finishing, you should go to bed early. I have prepared a big surprise for you tonight. With a gentle smile, she watched the little girl eating her homemade food seriously. The young man smiled and said. After the words fell, even Gui Zhong and Gui Li, who had been following him back, were stunned for a moment. They had never heard of the boy preparing any surprises. Okay. Seeing my brother is already enough to make me happy, and he even made gifts and surprises for me personally. At this moment, the little girl feels an unprecedented happiness. A little girl is such an easily satisfied little girl. End of this chapter.